My name is Loren. I am 32 years old, and my hands are always covered in dust. I work as a night cleaner at Skyline Designs, the biggest architecture firm in the city. Every night, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I empty trash cans. I vacuum carpets. I wipe coffee stains off large glass tables. But I don't just clean. I look. I look at the blueprints left on the desks. I look at the 3D models of skyscrapers and shopping malls. And when the office is completely empty, I take a small sketchbook out of my pocket. I have a dream to fulfill. I want to be an architect. I didn't go to university. When I was 18, my father got sick. I had to get a job to pay for his medicine. The dream was put in a box and pushed under the bed. But the dream never died. It just waited. The boss at Skyline Designs is a man named Mr. Thomas. He wears expensive suits and speaks very loudly. He is famous for designing buildings that look like giant glass ice cubes. They are cold, sharp, and uncomfortable. Architecture is about power, Mr. Thomas likes to shout at his team. It is about making people feel small. I always thought architecture was about making people feel safe. One week, the office was in a panic. The city had announced a massive competition. They wanted to build a new community hope center in my neighborhood, the poorer side of town. It was going to be a place for kids to study, for families to gather, and for the elderly to relax. The prize was a huge contract and a lot of fame. Mr. Thomas wanted to win. He put his entire team to work. For 3 weeks, they drew. They argued. They built models. On a quiet Thursday night, I was dusting Mr. Thomas's desk. In the center of the room was the final model for the competition. It was due the next morning. I walked over to look at it. My heart sank. It was another glass box. It was tall, gray, and cold. It looked like a prison for robots, not a community center for children. There were no trees. There was no natural light for the library. There was no playground, just a concrete plaza. The people in my neighborhood won't go there, I thought. It will scare them away. I looked at the trash can. Inside were dozens of crumpled papers, ideas that Mr. Thomas had thrown away. I sat in Mr. Thomas's expensive leather chair. I took my small sketchbook out of my pocket. I looked at my own drawings. For weeks, I had been designing my own community center. In my book, the building was made of warm red brick and wood. It had a rooftop garden. It had a big sunny room for the children and a quiet courtyard with a fountain for the elderly. It wasn't about power. It was about peace. I looked at the clock. It was 2 a.m. I looked at Mr. Thomas's terrible glass model. Then I looked at a stack of blank presentation boards sitting on the corner of his desk. A crazy idea popped into my head. It was an idea that could get me fired. It was an idea that could get me arrested. But I remembered my father. He used to say, "Loren, if you only clean the windows, you will only ever see other people's lives. Someday you have to build your own house." I put down my duster. I picked up a black marker and a ruler. My hands were shaking. I held the black marker. I looked at the big white presentation board. If Mr. Thomas caught me, I would lose my job. I needed this job to pay for rent and food. But my neighborhood needed a building that actually felt like home, not a glass ice cube. I took a deep breath. I uncapped the marker. I started to draw. Once I started, I couldn't stop. The fear went away. I wasn't Loren, the night cleaner, anymore. I was Loren, the architect. I drew the warm brick walls. I drew the large windows that let the sunlight in, but kept the cold wind out. I drew the rooftop garden where people could plant tomatoes and flowers. I drew a wide, welcoming entrance with no sharp corners. I knew my neighborhood. I knew that old Mrs. Gable needed a ramp, not stairs. I knew the kids needed a safe courtyard to play in away from the busy street. I put all of that into the drawing. The clock ticked. 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I used watercolors I found in a drawer to add green for the trees and a warm orange for the sunset hitting the bricks. By 5:30 a.m., I was finished. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever created. It wasn't perfect. The lines weren't drawn by a computer. They were drawn by a human hand, but it had soul. I looked at Mr. Thomas's official presentation boards. They were neatly stacked in a large black portfolio case, ready to be taken to the city council meeting at 9 a.m. My heart beat so fast it hurt my chest. I took my board. At the bottom right corner, I wrote a small, quiet letter. L. Then, I opened Mr. Thomas's black portfolio. I slipped my drawing into the very back, behind his glass boxes. I closed the zipper. I cleaned up the desk. I threw away my paper scraps. I put my sketchbook back in my pocket. I grabbed my vacuum cleaner and walked out of the office just as the sun started to rise. At 8:30 a.m., I was waiting at the bus stop across the street. I was wearing my gray cleaning uniform. I watched as Mr. Thomas marched out of the building. He was wearing his best suit. His assistant was carrying the large black portfolio. They got into a taxi to go to City Hall. I felt sick. What have I done? I thought. He is going to open that portfolio in front of the mayor. He is going to see my drawing. He will know it was me. I am going to be fired. I went home to my small apartment. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mr. Thomas yelling at me. At 4 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't my manager from the cleaning company. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? I said. My voice was tight. Is this Loren? A woman's voice asked. Yes, I whispered. My name is Maria, the woman said. I am the secretary for the mayor's office. Are you the night cleaner at Skyline Designs? I closed my eyes. The tears started to fall. This is it, I thought. They are calling to arrest me. Yes, I said. I am sorry. I know I shouldn't have touched the portfolio. I will pack my things. Pack your things? The woman sounded confused. Loren, we don't want you to pack your things. The mayor is asking if you can come down to City Hall. Right now. Why? I asked, my voice trembling. Because, Maria said, and I could hear a smile in her voice. There is a drawing here with an L on it, and the city council refuses to look at any other design until they meet the person who drew it. Would you like to continue the story? Of course. Here's the final part of Loren's story. I didn't have time to change. I took off my gray cleaning smock, but I was still wearing my faded jeans and worn-out sneakers. I took the bus to City Hall. My legs felt like lead as I walked up the massive marble steps. I was led into a large, bright boardroom with a long mahogany table. Sitting at one end was the mayor and 5 city council members. Sitting at the other end was Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas looked like a volcano about to erupt. His face was bright red. His expensive glass models were pushed to the side of the table. Right in the center, illuminated by the overhead lights, was my hand-drawn watercolor picture of the Brick Community Center. Ah, Loren, the mayor said warmly, standing up. Please come in. Mr. Thomas slammed his fist on the table. This is an outrage. Mayor, this woman is a janitor. She empties my trash. She sabotaged my presentation with this childish doodle. Mr. Thomas, sit down, the mayor said firmly. He turned to me. Loren, did you draw this? I looked at my drawing. I saw the warm red bricks, the rooftop garden, and the wide, welcoming doors. I thought about the kids in my neighborhood who needed a safe place. The fear suddenly melted away. Yes, sir, I said, my voice steady. I drew it. Why? A councilwoman asked gently. Why risk your job to put this in the portfolio? I took a deep breath. Because I live in that neighborhood, I said. I respect Mr. Thomas, but his building is a glass fortress. It is cold. People in my community don't need to feel small or intimidated. We need to feel safe. We need warmth. Old Mrs. Gable needs a ramp, not sharp concrete stairs. The children need a courtyard where they can see the sky, not a shadowed plaza. I pointed to my drawing. This building isn't about power. It's about hope. It's a place that says you belong here. The room went completely silent. Mr. Thomas scoffed, adjusting his silk tie. Poetry doesn't keep a roof from collapsing, Mayor. She doesn't have an architectural degree. She doesn't know the first thing about structural engineering. The mayor looked at Mr. Thomas, then back at my drawing. You are right, Mr. Thomas, the mayor said. She doesn't have the engineering background yet, but she has the vision. We can hire structural engineers anywhere in the city. We cannot hire a soul. And your glass box, frankly, has no soul. Mr. Thomas's mouth dropped open. The city council has made a decision. The mayor announced, "We are choosing Concept L." He looked at me with a bright smile. "Loren, we want to build your community center, and part of the project budget will include a full scholarship for you to attend the State University's School of Architecture. We want you on the consulting board while you get your degree." I covered my mouth with my hands. The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over. Mr. Thomas stood up, furious, and stormed out of the room, leaving his glass models behind. I didn't even watch him leave. I was too busy looking at my future. My name is Loren. It has been 4 years since that day in City Hall. I don't hold a vacuum cleaner or a duster anymore. My hands are still covered in dust, but now it is the dust from chalk, pencil lead, and construction sites. Tomorrow is my graduation day. I will officially be a licensed architect. But today is even more important. Today is the grand opening of the Skyline Hope Community Center. I am standing across the street, watching the people arrive. The building is made of warm red brick. The afternoon sun hits the large windows, making them glow like lanterns. On the rooftop, I can see the green leaves of the garden blowing in the wind. I see kids running into the courtyard, laughing. I see old Mrs. Gable rolling her wheelchair smoothly up the gentle ramp, a smile on her face. The building isn't a glass ice cube. It doesn't make anyone feel small. It looks exactly like my drawing. It feels like home. A little girl runs past me, pointing at the building. "Look, Mommy!" she yells. "It's so pretty!" I smile, putting my hands in the pockets of my jacket. I touch the small sketchbook I still carry with me every day. If you only clean the windows, you will only ever see other people's lives. But if you are brave enough to pick up the pen, you can build your own house. I had a dream to fulfill, and today I get to walk through its front doors.